everybody. Welcome to the Luthierist Podcast. I'm Paul Roney. We're back.
And I'm Jason Rodgers.
Yes, you are.
And I'm going to be riding along with Paul on some of these shows here. I shall be your Ed McMahon to your Johnny Carson.
That's flattering me way too much.
You're Robin to your Batman.
Ooh, no. Yeah,
your Vanna to your Pasajak.
Maybe.
Your Sideshow Mel to your Sideshow Bob.
There we go. Good old Bob Terwilliger. Yeah, you're going to hear it on this episode of the show. Jason and I went and talked to Clayton Pledger.
Clayton Pledger, PledgerGuitars.com.
Pledger, yeah, and I think it went really well. I think you're all really going to enjoy this interview.
Indeed.
There'll be many more to come. Remember, we're not dead yet.
Yet.
So enjoy. What, are we good there?
I think that's it.
A little bit more?
No, I think so. Yeah. Enjoy the show. Come back next week.
Under the staircase.
Yeah.
Finally seasoned staircase wood.
When I moved in and started building the shop up, it was nice to just start finding every little nook and cranny that could hold some shelves and stack a bunch of material onto. So
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of those kind of spread out throughout the whole basement. Yeah, so here's the tiny little shop.
Look, we gotta like turn on the recorder soon, quick before we lose any.
It is on.
It is on?
Yeah.
You've been doing this whole time?
Yeah. Let's just roll, man. Roll.
I thought you were doing it
pro
off
level
of
over here.
I thought you were doing it off of the laptop.
This ain't amateur hour, bro. No, I'll turn on the laptop when we sit down for formal interview time.
Oh, okay.
Because it just goes direct to the thing for that. It's a little better recording, but this for just mobile walking around. This, just goes and it sounds great.
Yeah.
I've used tons of recordings just off the iPhone.
Great.
So tell us what
here we are
looking at. Describe
with Clayton Pledger
Describe the mess.
Pledger Guitars.
Yeah.
In the picturesque Northeast Portland neighborhood.
You Portland native or where are you from?
I grew up in Texas, actually.
Oh, where? What part of
Doesn't
Texas?
sound like you're from Texas.
Yeah. Grew up in the big city of Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah. Moved out here in '97, so.
Okay, so you've been here a while.
For 20 years.
Yeah. What brought you out?
Well, I moved out with a girlfriend who got accepted to the naturopathic school. Okay. So we were living on the East Coast at the time, and she applied to NCNM, the naturopathic school out here. And, I was pretty happy where we were, but I came out here for the interview, and I had never been, I'd never really spent much time on the West Coast, so a little bit in California, but came out to Portland, and, I just kind of fell in love with the area. We went up and hiked around the gorge and drove up to Seattle and went out to the coast, and I was like, man, I hope you get that. I hope you get into that school, So So she got in, and I think we spent 3 months that summer. I had an old camper van, and we drove cross country for 3 months, hitting every
major landmark along
like grandma's. The last time I got to see my great grandmother, who was like 99 at the time, and just kind of like deteriorating from dementia, and I got to see my grandmother for the last time there also. So in Mississippi, and saw family, and saw a cousin get married in Texas, and then went up and hit a bunch of saw some friends in Colorado, and hit a lot of national parks along the way. So
excellent.
It was a good summer, and been here ever since.
So what were you first doing when you got here?
looking for a job. You know, it was the first thing I was doing, and I think my first job was working at Noah's Bagels, and then that didn't last very long. I realized selling bagels wasn't my thing. So.
You weren't just like super stoked on bagels. Like...
Was that the one on 23rd?
You know, I started out on 122nd in division.
Oh, that was what got you right there. If you would have been in the Pearl, see, you'd been able to sling bagels all day.
You could have missed out on your calling. Maybe.
I know. They put me in the Hawthorne one, which was right in my neighborhood. I was living in that area at the time, and now they stick me out at 122nd, and then moved me out to Beaverton. So, so getting up at 5 a.m. to go bake the bagels, you know, drive out to Beaverton every morning in the dark was rough. So and then after that, I was a bicycle messenger for a little while downtown, and that was probably the best job I've ever had.
Are there still people doing that?
I don't know.
I feel like maybe
there
because
are, but
when I lived in Portland, you know, 5 years ago or whatever it was, I feel like I saw a few every once in a while, but ever since I've been back, I haven't seen any.
They were everywhere, you know, 20 years ago when I was doing it, 19 years ago. And you know, I mean, I don't spend that much time downtown, but I don't really recall seeing them down there. That job lasted for, you know, I mean, like I said, it was probably the best job I ever had because I was just like on my bike all day, right? Just riding around. And then my bike got stolen. And my boss, my sympathetic boss, was like, well, that sucks. You know, and I'm making like,
a loner in the garage anywhere.
So, you know, like my $8 an hour salary, you know, it made it tough, you know, to find another bike at the time. And so I ended up leaving that job, and that's when I started doing, you know, I was going to school, and then I started working for a contractor doing, you know, just labor work, you know, like helping him out. He bought an old house back when, you know, it was a good time to buy an old house downtown, you know, like kind of at the foothills of the West Hills there. And we spent 3 or 4 months just gutting it and redoing it, and I really enjoyed it. You know, there's something about, you know, taking an old house and that's just trashed, you know, and just been abused for so many years, and bringing it back to life. So, you know.
And that house is now worth $750,000.
Way more. It was built in the late 1800s. It was like a giant duplex is what it was, an apartment below and there was a basement apartment that we created, a main floor apartment, and so it was a triplex actually. I went on the second floor. So, yeah, it was a good investment for him. Yeah.
So then the move to guitars, like a move to guitar seems like it. I mean, I have this theory that a lot of us who have gotten into luthiery in this sort of
musicians.
in this sort of era, you know, people under, I don't know, maybe not necessarily under 50, because there's a lot of folks that are retiring and finding that as a fun hobby to do, maybe even as a side business. But those of us who in the late 90s, early 2000s really sort of got into this, I have a theory that we have some sort of formative experience with guitars as youngsters, some sort of exposure to woodworking. We have this like kind of exponentially expanding internet information about guitar building, and a lot of the great books that I see on your shelf here that I have as well. And then at some point in time, there's this like switch in your head where you go, no, I need to build something, and I need to build something like that's either, you know, new or different or better, or maybe even trying to go back and recreate something of historical significance or something like that. where along that continuum did you find yourself as a guitar builder?
Yeah, I played around with guitars when I was a kid. Electric guitar, acoustic guitar, and I've never really considered myself a outstanding guitar player by any means, but played around with it, and it's like in my middle school days and high school days, and then ended up selling those guitars at some point. My old Kramer and my old Alvarez, and then I think it was around that time, like early 2000s, maybe right around 2000. I was thinking about getting back into playing more, but I needed a guitar, right? So, I started looking around at guitars to buy one, and just having a hard time finding anything I like. And then I played a handmade guitar. I don't even remember the maker, but
Somebody locally?
I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the name, or I wasn't familiar with. Yeah, but it was just a handmade guitar, and that just felt great in my hands. Everything about it, felt like what I wanted, but it was way out of my price range at the time, right? So, so that was, that must have been, 97, 98 when all this was happening. And then around 99, 2000, I used to go with some friends to the Produce Row down the southeast industrial area. It's like a bar, I believe it's still there, but they used to have
familiar.
They used to have a bluegrass jam there every Tuesday night. And so some friends of mine and I would go, hang out and listen to music. And my friend was like, yeah, there's this guy that you should meet, because I'd been talking like, I want to build a guitar, but I don't know how to start. He's like, oh, there's this guy you need to meet. He builds instruments. And so he introduced me to him. It was a guy that hung out there. It turned out to be Jeff Elliott. And so we became, I started talking to Jeff, realized we were next door neighbors basically. He lived around the corner from me, and he and Cindy did. And so we just became friends, and he encouraged me, and my friends got me the Campiana book, and Jeff and Cindy both were just like, yeah, anytime you need any help with getting unstuck with something, just give us a call.
And for folks who don't know Jeff Elliott and Cindy Burton, they are sort of like, I don't know, we call them like grandparents of
Portland.
They were here a long time ago, and they invited a lot of people to the Northwest, and of course have been longtime members of the Guild of American Luthiers, and have worked with Tim and Deb with the GIL, and are instrumental in setting up the Merrill show, the Portland Handmade Musical Instrument Show that we have here in Portland, which is a great showcase of local talent in the Northwest. So falling in with those folks is quite fortuitous, because there's nobody better who knows this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're two of the most amazing luthiers, around, and not only are they extremely talented, they're extremely generous and all about continuing the craft. I think that's a big part of their philosophy is to try to teach as many people as they can, and that's why they're such believers in the Guild of American Luthiers, and so involved, and I mean, there's nothing like having mentors like that are so supportive, and anytime, and they're so busy, like everybody, they're helping a lot of people out, and they're building and working with clients and writing and editing and everything they're doing. And anytime I would email with a question or call with a looking for a little support, I mean, they were like right there. Like if they didn't answer the phone, they would call you right back. It was always amazing. So that's kind of how it began for me, I think. I built my first guitar. It took me like a year and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
It took a while.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
What kind of guitar was it? Like, what some of the details on that?
It was a steel string, basically right out of the Kumpiana book. It was like, it was, 16-inch body, at the lower bout and long scale, It was, turned out to be a really nice little guitar. It was ugly, but it sounded great.
Do you still have it?
I do. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't even know if it has strings on it right now. I think I took the strings off a while back.
No, my first guitar doesn't have strings.
Yeah.
On it, for sure. No way. Because then somebody could play it.
Yeah, right. Well, this one, I love how it sounds, just as long as you don't look at it too close. But Jeff sold me the wood, and he had a bunch of wood that he was looking to get rid of. So I bought a Sitka spruce top and some East Indian rosewood and a neck. He's kind of supplied all the wood for me, and then Cindy taught me how to French polish because I wasn't really set up to spray or anything like that. And I was more interested in shellac and French polish, and so spent a lot of time with her learning that method, which I think I used for a lot of my guitars up until a couple of years ago.
What do you mean a couple of years ago? I saw on your website that French polish is an option, but it's an additional option. And you have high gloss as what are you doing for that now?
That's I'm just using Endurovar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The water-based polyurethane.
Not into lacquer. I'm not into fumes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no kidding. And how are you applying that?
I spray it.
Huh?
Yeah, I spray it. Actually, I've been bodying up. I started spraying, and then and now I'm just brushing it on, pretty thick, and then leveling it off, and then
about that,
anytime.
I'm having issues with that right now.
Anytime, yeah.
I haven't even tried that stuff yet. All my experiences with spraying lacquer and then urethane and then UV polyester I did for a while, and all spraying.
Yeah.
I've never had any experience with the Endurovar, but I really want to try it.
It works well.
It seems like a really cool finish.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about it's something about lacquer and how it blends, how it melts into itself.
Yeah.
The Endurovar does that. It doesn't melt into itself, but it chemically locks into itself as long as you scuff it, right? So. Learning that there's a lot of finesse work involved as far as learning the little details on how to repair and that kind of stuff. But once you figure that out, it's really forgiving and works really well. And I love it. That's great stuff to work with. So what was I going to say? Yeah. So I've been just brushing it on, leveling it off, and then I'll spray a couple of fine wet coats on top of that.
What kind of gun are you using?
I'm using those. They're just Central pneumatic.
They're just
cheap Harbor Freight ones.
$13. When it gets too dirty to use, I just buy another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But those I keep them clean, and those have lasted. I don't know, 4 years maybe. So.
Well, you can clean them up with soap and water, right? So
yeah, I just use hot water.
Yeah.
I don't even use soap. Awesome. I've been a little wary of putting soap in there. I suppose
that makes sense. Do you soak it? Like you just throw it in a bucket of hot water, or do you just run it through hot water down the sink?
I'll take it over to the utility sink and turn on the hot water and just kind of rinse it out really well, and then I'll spray the water down the stem of the sprayer itself. Try to get as much out that way. Put in some water, go spray the water out for a little bit, and that's good if I'm still using the gun for the day. If I'm done, using the gun, then I'll make sure I dump out the water, let it dry really well. I used to keep water in there. When I wasn't using it, and learned pretty quickly that just corrodes the cheap materials that the stuff's made out of.
So this is a Central Pneumatic touch-up spray gun. Are you using the the tips that it comes with. What's the nozzle size on that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It's that
Details.
size right there. Yeah. Whatever that is.
It's
pretty.
It's like a 1.4.
Okay, so you got some gun experience.
Yeah.
What do you like to use?
Oh, I mean, there's plenty of just cheap guns that you can get from like TCP Global and stuff like that. There's the nicest gun I ever had was a DeVilbiss Techna, which is like a couple $100. You know, it's not a cheap gun, but it's so lightweight and comfortable, and it's like every part is just so sort of precision fit to every other part. It just it like feels solid. It's just just became a very feel thing for me, you know, with that gun.
And you were spraying what with it?
At the time when I was using that gun was UV polyester.
Okay.
Yeah. But before that, I just used the cheap TCP Global guns, which are really no different from the Harbor Freight guns, you know. They just probably all being made by the same factory, you know. They're just branded differently or whatever. But yeah, I would just use those, and you know, when I sprayed polyurethane, and before that, I sprayed mostly lacquer. I did some water-based lacquer stuff for a while. Didn't like it too much. But, mostly nitro lacquer, and I had one of those Erlex HVLP of the electric turbine sprayer things. You know, which actually is not bad.
Really?
Yeah. I was kind of surprised. The thing was pretty functional.
Yeah.
Where are you doing your spraying?
Right through that door.
Let's see it.
Yeah.
This makes for really good audio on a podcast. Let's see it. Oh,
That's
it's
So we were walking down a
looks
dark
like
hallway.
a room.
Yeah.
Oh, this is your actual garage.
Yeah.
You've got a knockdown spray booth situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of. Well, but it's built in. I mean, I wouldn't call this a knockdown because you're not taking that down easily. But
It's not. Yeah, it's more just like it's not really an enclosed spray booth. You know, I guess. You know, enclosed into the garage.
But you've got your explosion proof fan here, and you've got your venting outside window.
Yeah, so I'll open up this door here, or you know, a door in the other room, and then you know, give this a little whirl, and then this is my $5.
oh yeah, that's high tech
filtration
for sure.
system. Yeah.
Just throw a fiberglass filter, thermos filter, right on top of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that gets all the stuff out of the air.
So I mean, you've got woodworking tools right here next to it. Bandsaw.
Yeah, this is the dusty room.
Arm saw and everything. There's a lot of sawdust. So how do you keep sawdust from just getting in your finish while you spray? Is it kind of like you don't, and you just get stuff in there and you deal with it later, or just wait for a day when dust isn't so ambient in the air?
It doesn't kick up that much dust.
Really?
Yeah, I'm spraying so lightly. It's not like a big explosion of air. And so, yeah, I've never had that problem. And if a piece of dust does fall in there, then it just gets sanded out.
Yeah, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
This is good coffee, by the way.
Okay.
I'm enjoying this.
Extracto. I don't know if you buy your coffee beans
idea what that
but you
means.
should. Yeah.
Extracto.
Yeah, they're just right down the street, and
that's
they
nice.
get the most amazing coffee beans, and everything is like super fresh. They're like on top of it. So,
Very cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
everything that you buy there was roasted probably the day or two before. So.
Oh, impressive.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Actually.
It's all in the coffee beans. Yeah. So yeah, this is where I make messes.
Yeah, shop box buffer over here. This is the
I envy your
chop saw,
Yeah.
planer.
your side belt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good belt sander.
The edge,
Edge sander. Yeah,
Does
that's
it oscillate, or is it just
No.
just edge sander?
No.
I would take it.
Everything's on wheels, so you know you can tuck it away because you know space is limited
at a
around
premium.
here. Yeah. This was probably one of the best things I ever bought for the shop. I use it all the time.
Very
for
cool.
just laying something down, making sure it's square, you know, and sanding it flat.
Yeah.
So.
And you have dust collector there in the corner.
Yeah.
It looks like. Okay.
Yeah, but you know.
This is the
That
same
kinda works.
drum sander that I used to have. That's a good little machine.
Yeah, it's been okay. I've
Yeah.
had it for 17 years and no problems, you know, other than the fact that those drum sanders, when you're sanding really, resinous, oily woods, they gum up really quickly. But I don't know.
Oh,
if
I
there's
have a tip for that.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I can link you to a video.
Do you
we
spray
did.
something on there, or do you?
No, Abralon.
Oh.
Abralon strips that you can adapt for your drum sander.
Is that the Abernet stuff? Like
Abernet, yeah. Abernet. Yeah, Abernet. That's,
Abernet?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The Merca stuff. Yeah,
Um,
Mark Roberts showed me.
yeah, I've heard
his shop.
Kerry Char talking about Mark Roberts doing that.
It's way cool, bro.
Okay.
Sorry.
Amateur hour over here. God.
I was telling Paul as we came up here that we first became acquainted because you had a table saw on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And I called you, and I had noticed there was a Fox Sidebender in the background, and I started talking to you. I'm like asking you about this stuff. You ended up selling it before I was able to pull the trigger on that. But then the next Maryland show, I introduced myself to you, and then another year or two later, I was just around the corner with my own table.
So cool.
Yeah.
That was a nice,
funny how
nice table saw. You really missed out.
Yeah.
Sucks for you.
I wouldn't have any room for it right now, though. It would have to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
We'll have you over for happy hour after the next Maryland show.
Oh yeah.
And you'll see how there. If I had your table saw, it would basically be like 1/4 of the shop taken up.
Oh yeah. He has the smallest shop I've ever seen. It's
Smaller
amazing.
than this?
It's
Smaller than this by a lot. By a lot. Yeah. It's cool.
It's special.
It's very special.
It's always cool to see.
So cute.
It's always cool to see how people use their space. You know, I mean, I don't know if I've ever really been into a giant instrument maker's shop. You know, I mean, Kerry Char, who I work with, occasionally, you know, he's got a pretty nice big space. But you know, like John Graven, like he's got a really small basement.
What's the size of this? Yeah, I've just seen that.
Utilizes really well and
videos and articles. Yeah. And then also like with Grevin, he uses so few power tools too. Yeah. Like he doesn't want everything off of just a belt sander. Yeah. Like he makes a belt sander do a million jobs. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's you know, I think all that time of working with Gruen and you know, working with hand tools back in the 70s, you know, it's like
really, the level of efficiency.
That
you find out there's like all these tools that everybody thinks they have to buy.
Exactly.
Don't really need them.
Yeah, because then you're spending all that time setting them up and repairing them and cleaning them and, you know, changing the belts or the blades or blah blah blah. You know, it just becomes expensive and time consuming. And I think he's definitely somebody that's got you know, got that all down on how to save time and money. On his shop and instruments.
I'm reaching inside your guitar here. I'm feeling around.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit obscene. So are you you build in very much sort of the Martin tradition of auditorium, OM, and D style guitars. What are you doing under the hood to make it a Pledger guitar?
Well, you know, I'm just primarily X-bracing and trying to use the lightest, stiffest materials I have, and typically make the braces fairly tall, but also, you know, I scallop them pretty low, so kind of go for thicker tops. Thicker tops and they're highly scalloped braces is kind of what I like. So.
Is that a tonal thing in terms of achieving the tone, or is it a bit of a combination of achieving the tone that you like in addition to just you know, an instrument that's going to last?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those things. You know, I think there's something about. I think this came from a conversation I had with John Graven about, you know, about. I think he uses even smaller braces than I do, but I like to have them braced a little bit more than he does, I think, and I might even be leaving the tops a little bit thicker, but I think there's something about that woody tone that I like to hear out of my instruments, and I think having a little more wood on the top gets that. But also having them scalloped enough around the bridge to where they can really move. So, yeah, for me, I guess it's a fine balance.
This top, by the way, just looks extraordinary. I want it. It's like I feel like I could I could poke my finger like half an inch down into the figure here. Was a Sitka, and then it's just got this quarter fleck that is amazing. It's glowing. How did you get that out of there?
Well, let's see. We're gonna put this over here. It's
Is that roasted or something, or is that the natural color? It's so
no, it's got some color in it.
It's rich.
Yeah, so I stained it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And the stain definitely brings all the figure out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's those are some tops that I got from Alaska Tonewood, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, I've got a few of them, and they're all just like perfectly quartered like that, and highly figured. You don't really even see the figure until, or you wouldn't really notice it until you put color into it, and then and then it really makes it jump out at you. But like I've got.
I think these sample tops over here or test.
Yeah, those are like tests for.
Because even these are.
What is this little room? Is this like storage?
Oh wait.
Oh yeah, this is the
This is the
kind of a
humidity
warm room, and
Gotcha.
humidity controls. So
and/or bathroom.
and or bathroom.
Yeah, multi-function facility.
So this has so much figure in it. When I put stain on it, I didn't even like it. It was just way too much figure. But you can hardly even, I mean, unless you're like really looking for it.
It's interesting because this looks.
I mean, you can just see all that cross striation.
This one looks the opposite of the one on the bench here, because the one on the bench has all of that fleck on the outside on the wings, and this one has it in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
Mm-hmm. But it's still there. I mean, it's
for sure.
It's man. I mean, when I put color in that, it was just like too much.
I think the D, is it the D12 or the slope D that you have on your website right now? It's got this same coloring. So if you want to go look at what we're talking about here, go to pledgerguitars.com, and it's the for sale actually available now page, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that guitar is sitting in Artichoke Music right now.
Oh, where's that?
They used to be over on Hawthorne for years, and then they just moved to Powell Boulevard. So, yeah, they lost. I don't really know exactly what happened. They lost the building. I don't know if the owners just decided to sell it or what, but now they've recently relocated, and now they got a new space, and so
Did they still have a small performance space in the back?
Yeah, so so this new space is like 20th and Powell, and the new space has it's not quite as big as the old space as far as like where the instruments are, but then they did get a space right next door, and they're in the process of connecting the two spaces with a doorway, and that's going to be a cafe. So they'll have like a coffee shop and live performances. So.
When it comes to that handful of really cool shops in Portland, instrument shops that unfortunately seem like they're going away. There's Artichoke.
Yeah.
There's 12th Fret.
Yeah.
There used to be Pioneer Music on 9th and Park downtown.
Right.
And they specialize a little bit more in arch tops and flat tops and things like that. But yeah, Artichoke, definitely a great resource here.
Yeah, and it's a non-profit, so they're they do really good things there, and they raise money and keep the lights on that way. So yeah, it's a really cool organization that I'm recently I used to take guitar lessons there years ago, and then just recently, since now they have a couple of my guitars, like reading a little bit about them and what they do. So there's a lot more to learn. They've got a lot going on there. So.
Do they just have them there like on consignment kind of a thing? Like you put them on display, and then if somebody wants to buy it, they take a little money, but you get the rest.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah.
Have you sold many guitars there?
No, I haven't. I just put some in there. I mean, they just opened up at the end of the summer, so I just
we should stop by there sometime.
Yeah.
Let's go check it out.
How have you what's been your main sort of like mode of sales? Is it website? Is it local? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of finding me on my website, on the internet, or word of mouth, I think. Yeah, I think that's really kind of. I'm more, I'd like to get my instruments into more music shops in town. I think that's really the best way to have them out there so people can see them and play them. Because they don't get played much when they're just hanging out in my shop, in my basement.
Sitting in the case under the bench, right?
Yeah. You were talking about, instrument shops. I was, after the Thorns game yesterday, we were walking down 19th, I think, or 18th. I can't remember what street it's on, but there's a new instrument shop in town.
Oh, yeah. Thunder Road.
Oh, right.
I just stepped in there yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You found
So
it
did
over
I.
there, okay.
Yeah. Nice little shop. It's good. It's good space.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's
Beautiful
cute.
instruments.
Tiny little thing, and all almost exclusively beautiful old vintage instruments.
Yeah. It turns out,
53 gold top Les Paul. And you're just like, I could just play that right now. It's a $30,000 guitar. I could just grab it and I could play that if I wanted to right now.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's neat to have things like that around. Are your customers, do you find them kind of all over the place, like all over the world? Has word spread and you've sold guitars, to people in other countries, or is it just largely local?
Largely local.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like just recently, I may have had a website for a while, but I think recently starting to come out of the shadows a little bit, trying to, promoting myself is not my thing, I'm really good at sitting in my shop by myself and working, with
headphones on.
Yeah, but marketing and getting my stuff out there is not really my forte. So I've been working a little bit harder over the last year or so, trying to do more of that, whatever that is.
Break out of that shell
that kind
and
of
get some
stuff.
social media going.
Right.
So you're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and stuff, or like all of those, or
Instagram, Facebook,
cool.
Right? I feel like my theory is, and I don't know if this is true or not, but my theory is get them in the hands of people that make them sound really good when they play, and get them to like them, and then they do a lot of advertising for you, you know.
Yeah, your players do the promotion for you.
And I think that's what every instrument maker is trying to do, and so I've got some great musicians that own some of my guitars, and I feel like it's something that just takes time, really kind of spreading, and I'm not like a high production shop, I build 4 or 5 a year, 6 if I'm lucky, and so I can handle my demand right now.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Have you ever found a musician where they either approach you or you approach them, and maybe the cost of owning a handmade instrument is a little bit prohibitive, but you want to give them an opportunity, and maybe you give them a payment plan, or you give them a price break or anything like that? Have you ever done anything like that?
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I mean, anybody that builds guitars or any instrument knows that. I mean, it's obviously, it just takes a lot of time, right? There's a lot of work that goes into it, and you feel like what you put into it and like what you should be getting for that, is like way out of most people's price range, right? And so for me, it's like I try to make my prices as low as I possibly can, and then I mean, as far as I'm always negotiable, and I've done many payment plans, just by, non-contract, like handshake. Yeah, just pay me when you can, And I think with local guys, that's really easy,
Yeah.
And they're always great, I mean, no one's ever taken advantage or anything like that, like every once in a while I'll get a little PayPal payment or a check or whatever, and that works for me.
Have you ever had anybody have to back out?
You mean like take the instrument, pay for some of it and then?
No, like maybe they started making payments. They put a down payment, so you started the guitar or something, and then they said, "Hey, man, hard times here. I can't. I'm gonna have to cancel the order."
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
Right. No, I never had.
Never had that. That's good.
Yeah.
It's always like heartbreaking when
That'd
that
be
kind of thing.
frustrating.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would suck. Like, oh, I already started it.
Right.
You know, I think it's, you know, and it sucks for them too, because you know that like
Yeah.
they don't do that just because they are a jerk. They're doing that because, you know, they have to.
Yeah.
They'd rather get the guitar. You
Yeah.
know, but,
I had one, old friend of mine, one of my best friends growing up. When I first started building, his dad, I got to know his dad. You know, we grew up in Dallas, and his dad was in LA, and he would spend his summers with his dad, and I would go out and visit. You know, I went out there a couple times to visit and got real close with his dad, and he was a great guitar player. And so when I first started building, my friend was like, "Hey, you know, I want to get one for my dad, you know, for Father's Day. Will you build me one?" I was like, "Yeah." And so I was like, "I'd love to, of course," you know. And so got everything figured out, and then he called me up and was like, "Oh man, bad news. Like, his dad was a substitute teacher, and he was playing basketball with some of the students, you know, just fooling around with like high school students, and fell and like landed on his left hand and like broke multiple bones in his hand,
terrible.
right? And he was like, "I don't think he's ever gonna play guitar again."
Oh no, that sucks.
And yeah, and it was just like such a bummer. And then we figured like we decided, well, why don't we build him a lefty, and he could relearn, you know, with his right hand. And so that's what we did. So it was
How about that?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Sad story turned out okay.
Turned out okay.
Nice.
You know? Yeah.
I noticed I'm looking in the neck, the sound hole there, and you're using a glued-in dovetail neck joint.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried any other?
I used to bolt them on. Yeah.
What made you switch?
Talking to old school people like John Graven, you know, that's another guy, by the way. I mean, who has just been incredible as far as like helping me along. You know, like he's just been there every step of the way. You know, anytime I need help with something or want to talk shop or you know, looking for advice on something, you know, he's just like always answers the phone, always there to chat, always takes time to like talk things through or whatever, right? So, you know, when I was bolting him on, he would always give me a hard time about it. He's like,
I would expect that he would.
Them on?
But
yeah.
it seems like people do the opposite direction.
I
Like
know.
they start with the dovetails, and then they're like, you know,
Maybe
I can get good results, and it's gonna be a
Yeah.
little bit faster, a little bit easier with the bolt-ons.
I
So
don't see anything wrong with the bolt-on,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
You know, I mean, like, there's so many things about it that make sense, right? Easy to reset a neck. I mean, that's the big one, right? You don't have to take the whole neck off to change the angle on it. You know, super simple to put on. I mean, it's like there's lots of good things about it. You know, John's theory is that it's just not enough. You don't have enough wood-to-wood contacts. You lose some of the tone. You lose some of the sound.
Some of the vibration
transfer, it's through the neck. And, you know, I never know what theories are right or wrong or, you know, whatever. But it makes sense to me. And
but when you're talking to a guy like John Grevin, who's built like how many guitars into
thousands.
and he has seen and repaired, you know, things that are you know, pre-war Martins and stuff like that are there's a point where you maybe want to like listen to empirical evidence.
I think so too. Yeah, you know, something about that 50 years of experience and knowledge that I take seriously. You know, it's like, because I don't know anything. You know, I feel like I don't. You know, I feel like this is all just like I'm learning something every day. You know, and I think that's what you know, what I love about it. You know, I feel like there's so much to know and so much to figure out and so much to experiment with, and you know,
so let's say you do 5 guitars in a year. do you feel like you have your process down to a point where those 5 guitars are pretty much built in the same sequence with the same techniques, or do you kind of tweak things here and there still?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I mean, I think I'm constantly changing things, like trying to make. I mean, there's certain things that I do the same all the time, right? But yeah, there might be some tweaking that happens, and I think those tweaks are usually time-saving tweaks. Like, God, why have I been doing that for so long? And then like, why don't I just do this? I skip this step, and
Turned out fun.
yeah. So, but for the most part, I think I've kind of found a good system that works. I don't think it's like a super efficient by any means system, but for now it works, and I know it'll evolve over time. I think so Kerry Char, really amazing restorer of old instruments and repair guy and builder of amazing ukuleles and guitars. I've been working in his shop for over a year now, and you really working with somebody like that that's got a number of years more than me under his belt with experience, you really pick up on a lot of cool tricks. So I think some of my changes have been made working in his shop and seeing how he does some things, that I'm like, oh, right, that makes perfect sense,
Yeah. What's a good example of that?
Well, I think, let me think about that. Well, I mean, I think a big thing, like working in a repair shop where you do a lot of fret work, and setup work and that kind of stuff. Like the time, I used to, one perfect example, like when I would final setup on a guitar, I used to put my saddle into the bridge and get, wear the strings, get the action off the fingerboard, and then lower the saddle off the top of the saddle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he sets up the saddle, gets it all intonated, sets it up, or strings it up, and then measures for action, and then takes it off the bottom. It's like a simple thing. It's like, why didn't I ever think of that? It's like, and with fret work, I mean, it's like when somebody like that who's doing fret work every day for years, or almost every day for years, you really learn how to dial things in. Where I used to beat my head up against the wall, like chasing high frets, and now I've gotten to the point where, I get it everything perfect right on the first go at it, and I don't ever have any problems with high frets, so that kind of stuff has been really helpful with my own building.
Yeah, I sometimes find that I'll skip a step, and then with maybe, let's say, with body shaping or something like that, or I'll postpone it. Say like, well, I'm not going to do it on this guitar. I'm not going to do this now. I'm going to do this step later, and then I come back. And I realized that on the last two, I was not only doing the job, I was redoing the job, because in the process of, manipulating the body, putting templates on and stuff like that, I was scuffing things up. I was messing things up anyways. So it's like, just wait till the end just to do that job. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's the new way to do it now. It's like, I'm going to go that way now.
Yeah. Order of operations is always really important.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's cool. Like I said, it's just really, it's a big part of it is constantly teaching yourself, right? Like what works best for what you're doing, and what makes most sense for whatever it is you need to accomplish. It's an endless learning process, I feel like.
I feel like if it's not, then why bother?
Yeah.
You know, like, why are you doing it?
It's
What are you
the
doing
whole,
it for
like,
if you're not learning, still
cranking out
learning
widgets,
things? You know?
Very true, right?
Yeah.
I'd
Making
rather,
bagels.
yeah.
Yeah.
Making bagels. Yeah. Is anybody hungry? I want a bagel now. Jeez. I noticed also these two bodies have different shapes. How many different shapes do you do and models do you offer?
Right now I'm doing 3 different shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But would like to do some smaller ones. You know, right now I'm kind of doing like the OM triple O, like this one, and then that one's more like a slope shoulder D. You know, 14 fret and a 12 fret on that. And then I also have I do have a 12 fret model for the triple O and OM sides as well.
I seem to remember at one of the last shows that you had a very, very petite instrument on your table. Am I thinking something else? I thought something with a tighter waist than this.
Maybe I did. One of my first models was. Oh, you mean like? I have this like.
Not really parlor, but
Right. Well, maybe something like this. Is that kind of like a,
Got the open headstock on there too.
yeah.
that's cool.
Slotted headstock.
Yeah.
May I?
Please.
Pretty.
I don't know if that's like as far as playable. I mean, it might not be. So
Maybe tune it first.
Yeah.
Actually, sounds pretty good.
This is like the first time we've had somebody playing a guitar on this show.
Oh, cool.
Really?
Not literally, but almost. Nobody ever actually plays. That's why. What is that in the? What is that?
Some burl?
That's it's an Amboina burl.
That's cool.
It's got a European spruce top and.
Is this guitar like for sale right now, or what is the story with this one? Customer order that hasn't been picked up yet, or?
No, it's I don't know. I had it for sale and then I'm just holding on to it. I took it off my website for a little while and just trying to figure out if I was going to do something to it or not. But I have one that's similar to it. So I built 2 of that particular style. And people always love them, but nobody ever buys them for some reason. I don't know why. But this is a beautiful sounding instrument that has been played by so many people. I built it in 2013, but nobody ever wanted to buy it for some reason, right? And recently had a guy come over and to play some instruments, right? He just like found me online, I guess, and or he said he heard my name from somebody, right? And so he came by, and I had like 5 or 6 guitars for him to play, and he really loved this one, but he wanted a different neck on it. So I'm in the process. I mean, that's that neck right there.
Oh.
I'm making a different neck with a little wider string spacing at the nut. So
Is that a Honduran mahogany?
that is African mahogany.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I find make great necks. I mean,
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, they're
I love
just
it.
like super lightweight.
And you're doing a scarf headstock and stacked heel there.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you getting this truss rod from?
Well,
Is that kind of a?
I got that from John Graven, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, he's making them, or is
No,
he's?
it's interesting. He taking apart old Martin guitars. I think he used to find these in those old instruments, and he's like, "What the hell is it?" It turns out it's those old wood ladders, like step ladders.
Oh, no way.
It's
I
like
know what you're talking
it's
about.
the bolt that goes in that holds
it's
the
the
step.
tension.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And so he bought a box of these, like a penny a piece or something like
Oh
that.
my gosh.
And so
And they're just double action truss rods.
Well, it's single action.
Single
right?
Oh,
action.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Single.
Yeah, and you just grind it flat. You make the slot,
Mm-hmm.
grind grind it flat at the bottom. The head, you take the head off at the bottom.
It lays on the bottom.
And it lays on the bottom flat.
Mm-hmm.
And it works like a charm, and it's super lightweight.
And it's got nice fine threads on the end there too.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah, and then I just use a 3/16 Allen wrench for the nut and a little washer. So super fast, super easy setup.
Yeah,
that's what's
great.
And it works really well.
That's what's in the rest of these?
Mm-hmm.
I like it because I've been looking into like single action rods that you can adjust with an Allen key like that.
Yeah.
You know, at the heel for an electric bolt neck guitar. It's different, slightly different application, but that's it's just very elegant looking.
Do you do
do
a curved bottom slot, or is it slanting downwards?
No, just a flat, like half-inch down, all the way across. And you know, I mean, this makes me think about like all the different conversations I've had with people. You know, it's like there's this theory of heavy necks over lightweight necks, right? You know, there's like the really, I don't know what's better. You know, I mean, people swear that like the more weight you put into a neck, you know, you keep the sound out of the neck from traveling up the neck and getting lost up there, right? It keeps it down in the body, right?
Where does it go?
Yeah.
It runs
Ghosts
away.
take it off.
Yeah, right. I don't know the answer, you know. Like, I prefer a lighter weight neck. I prefer a lighter weight instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is lovely balance. Yeah.
thanks. Yeah. So I don't know.
Smells good too.
Oh, yeah.
So fresh. Wonderful.
Is this actually a bird's beak
Yeah.
or a bridle joint or what
Like
do you
a
call them?
V-joint.
V-joint.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I experimented a little while with some V-joint head to neck joinery and really loved doing it. But you know, it's a beautiful look. I mean, I think that's what I really love about it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's amazing how strong the joint is. You know,
It
like you
just
get
kind
it
of
tight,
pulls itself
you know?
together.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And then the strings, I mean, the strings are pulling towards it, you know, so
It closes it and pulls it together.
Yeah.
I've seen some really cool stuff with like completely contrasting headwood. It's like the neck shaft is one thing, and like the headstock, the entire headstock is just something else.
Yeah.
And
That's a
you
good
see
idea.
that, and you're like, at first it looks a little bit weird, and then you, especially when you see the V joint in there, you're like, oh, I get it. This is cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful look.
Yeah.
Got me thinking.
Are you gonna get back into playing or building, or are you? Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about all of that, but enough about me. What are some of the? I mean, it looks like I'm just seeing like it looks like a really wide variety of woods. Do you have particular woods that you're I want to say faithful to, or are you really kind of always experimenting, always using different, you know, having fun with it and doing different things like?
Right. I really like Sitka spruce. I mean, I think this is what I use most of. I don't know if it's just the batch of tops that I got, but every one of them has just been great.
Yeah.
And I know how to work with it. You know, like I've learned I learned, you know, that's what it needs. You know, and I think that's a real important part of working with different woods is knowing what they need, right? Like what kind of finesse or what kind of thicknesses or
Are you flexing? Are you doing taps? Are you doing tea leaves? Are you doing? I'm serious.
Swirled around in a cup and
what's it called? It's called Chladni testing. It's like the frequency.
What
Looking
planet
at the
are you
modes.
from?
Dude, planet of Luthierism.
I don't really have, you know, I feel like no, I don't have any real method. I don't you know, I think you can feel a top, I think, but they all have to be the same thickness, right? If you're going to take a bunch of tops and feel and like look for stiffness, they all got to be
Right, you gotta start at the same place.
They all have to be the same place, right? I never get myself to that spot where I have like 10 different tops and they've all been thinned down to 150, 140 thousandths, and I go through and feel them. I think for me, you know, I bought a bunch of tops from the same place, from the same, you know, the same time, and they all work the same way.
Really similar properties, so you
yeah,
some predictability there for you.
Exactly. So,
how many more of those do you have? How long are they going to last?
I don't know. I bought. I don't know. I haven't counted them. I've got a big stack.
Yeah,
Be good for a while.
Yeah, it'll last a few years.
Is there anything that you do, like once you get, let's say you get the box all glued up here, and is there anything that you do to tap to you know, to flex, pushing down on the top? Is there anything that you're looking for? And then if you find it, if you don't find it, are you doing any like additional thinning of braces? You coming back to the, you know, perimeter and sanding?
Right. None of us have a clue.
Come on, look us up here.
I don't do too much of that. I have a real simple method: keep it thick in the middle and thin it out in the sides. And you know, I think as long as I stay within those parameters, it usually turns out acceptable for me. You know, yeah, you know, it's like,
so it's kind of a method that works.
Yeah.
And then each piece of wood is not necessarily treated special, but you know that the method is a good method, and you know that each piece of wood is going to have its own personality.
Yeah.
You sort of, is it kind of preferential then in that sense to, you know, allow each guitar to be unique and allow each guitar to be special in that way, rather than sort of tailoring it to sort of a preconceived idea? If that makes sense.
I lost you. Say that again.
Like, you know, is it about crafting something, and then what you craft and what the sound you get out of it after it's done, allowing that to just be what it is, and not trying to sort of force it in any one direction, you know, as opposed to, I think a lot of builders, like if you look at, you know, larger factory builds like a Taylor or whatever, they have a specific sound they're going for, and they know like a specific wood formula and a specific thickness and density and everything, and they're going to just do all the same thing to get the same sound.
You know, I think you know, there's a lot of really great builders out there that have a lot more experience than I do around that, as far as like getting exactly the tone that they want, you know. I find with my experience that certain models are going to sound a certain way. You know, they're going to sound different. Smaller body guitars are going to sound different than larger body guitars, right? Thinner body guitars are going to sound different than, you know, deeper bodied guitars. Certain spruces, you know, Sitka is going to sound different than Adirondack. Adirondack's going to sound different than Lutz or you know, or the Engelmann or any of the softer cedars, right? And then you got your back and sides. You know, you got the tropical hardwoods are going to sound different than the more domestic woods, or you know, like the softer tropical hardwood. You got the hard tropical hardwood, and you got this like the mahoganies and those sort of woods. And so there's a huge combination of between all of that, top material, back and side material, body size, and you know, models, you know, particular models that are gonna create a different sound. Each one's gonna create a different sound.
Do you ever string up a guitar and go, yep, that's about what I expected? Or are you constantly sort of surprised and sort of maybe even pleased by the result of a particular combination? You're like, oh, that works really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I am. I think with the Sitka spruce, I'm always kind of, yep, that's kind of what I was expecting, you know. But then when I deal with other like European spruces, you know, German spruce or something like that, you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's got a little different sound to it. So yeah, I am both, yeah. Sometimes not surprised at all, and sometimes very surprised. Yeah, which is really cool. It's really cool to play around with different woods. And
when it comes to getting commission, does it really seem, when you're talking with a customer about wood choice, does it really seem like they understand what they want or what woods they want for a particular sound, or do you think they're just going off of rumor and just what they read on the internet, or are they just going visually, aesthetically?
It's a mixed bag, I think. Some people are really knowledgeable about what they want, and what they want a guitar to sound like, or what they want a guitar to do. And then others, not so much. They just want a guitar, right? And so, I think it's a hard thing to do. The whole custom guitar for somebody, is it's a hard thing to do, to get exactly what somebody wants, So I feel like, there's a reason why, that people have specific models, and you can be like, these are the 3 or 4 models I build. Tell me what you like, play them, and tell me what you like and tell me what you don't like. Oh, you like that model? Okay, so then you can, what do you want? You want a warmer sound? Okay, we'll make it with mahogany and a soft, some softer woods, or you want a really bright or a real powerful sound. Okay, well, we'll make it with those woods, and then getting the neck just right, as far as string spacing and feel of the neck, those things. I feel like it's important to meet with a potential client and have them feel a few things and say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, because it's really hard to describe that over the phone, or dealing with clients out of the country, or out of the state. I feel like it's a different experience.
Language barriers, subjective language barriers, onomatopoeia.
What I want might mean a lot, might mean something way different than what you think I want. So
of the if you build 5 guitars in a year, how many of those are commission builds, and how many of them are builds that you came from you wanted to build this, and then you're just going to sell it when it's done, or
I think it's kind of about half. Maybe a couple of commissions and a couple of just that'll be for shows or here to play, or hopefully put into a store or something like that. Yeah,
that's a pretty good mix, I think.
Yeah.
Your shop is, I love walking into shops and just losing yourself on one wall and just seeing all the great stuff. You're extremely organized. You have this. I'm looking at one wall.
It's a post office behind you.
Yeah, and there's all these small. They look like old card catalog drawers.
Yeah, Dewey Decimal System.
Labeled.
He's got the.
You have the Dewey Decimal System going on here.
Yeah,
I can look at a shelf and I know very specifically what this area is for. Turn to the other wall here, and you've got this great setup with magnets, the little magnet strips, the little kitchen magnet strips for knives and stuff. But you have all your chisels and your files.
A fairly ridiculous amount of chisels.
I
think you have a problem
over here. I like the middle here where you have sort of this T shape on this opposite wall from the storage area. Having a bench that can come out and you can get on both sides of it, so the instrument can hold still and you can go around from side to side. And that, as I look around it, I can tell that we have different areas that are very purposeful. And oh my gosh, I just got the best idea for what to do with all my random little pieces of sandpaper, because I have a box full of random little pieces of sandpaper. You're like, no, this is still good. This 2-inch strip of sandpaper is still good.
I used to do that.
And now it's all full of, they're all labeled.
Random different.
This is labeled here. This is great.
That was definitely one simple little thing that I did that that just I appreciate every day, really, just knowing exactly where each grid is all the time, you know, and having them super accessible. Because I used to dig around through scraps of sandpaper looking for 600 grid or whatever.
This is 400, but it's been really used. Maybe it's close to 600 now.
Right. Yeah, I don't feel that organized, but, you know, I try to be as organized as possible because there's so much stuff, you know, there's so many things that I need, and if I can't find them, then I quickly will lose my mind, and always just trying to be. I think the game is to become as efficient as possible, right? And it's a hard thing to do, to be efficient, but...
especially when you're working for yourself and you're trying to understand your own workflow and your own tendencies.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find that the simplest little change can make you just very happy.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this years ago?
Pure joy when you figure something like that out. Yeah.
Totally.
I moved this 2 inches to the left.
Yeah.
Now my workflow has improved by 72%.
Oh yeah. So true.
What do you have a favorite part of the overall process that you enjoy?
Stringing up, I think, is probably my favorite.
The final, just like, I'm done. Oh,
finally, I can hear what this thing sounds like.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
That's exciting. Yeah, that's always exciting.
Yeah.
The rest is grunt work. You know, I mean, it's hard work. It's hard on the body. I love it. You know, obviously. You know, I love carving a neck. You know, I think it's, you know, it's amazing work, but man, I mean, you spend so many hours just like on all the little details, trying to get everything just right and get all those scratches out and like get everything, you know, it's a lot of work.
And the smallest little change in contour can make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Or you think that you've got it right, and you go back and you wash your hands because your hands are all full of sawdust and you can't feel right. And then you run your thumb across the back and you're like there's a facet there.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Like, let's back up 3 sanding grids. Let's try that again.
Totally. Yeah. So I think once you get to the, you know, after all that, you know, after how many hours, I don't even know, you know, like,
sometimes you're afraid to count.
Yeah, it goes into getting everything just right, all the finish, you know, struggles of like getting everything flat and get all the scratches out of there and, you know, create the finished look that you want. Yeah, there's nothing like putting on the strings and strumming it for the first time.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend of mine about that, and you know, and saying, you know, you make such a cool guitar. You make such this model that he does. It's so unique. It's so cool, and so we need to get you set up where, you know, you've got some jigs and templates and just whatever it takes so that you can just make more of those things, because there just needs to be more of this guitar in the world. It's super cool.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I mean, that'd be really cool, and I'd love to do it and everything, but like I don't want to take away that carving the top part. You know, I love that process. It's just so cathartic for me and everything. And I said, you know, like, I totally get it. I agree, because I love carving a neck or carving a top or carving anything. But you know what I also love? Assembling a guitar and playing it, and then selling it and collecting a paycheck. Right. And so it's like you're sort of like, you know, 6 of this, half dozen of the other, maybe. Sure. But you know what I mean? It's like you take your pleasures where you can and everything. Yeah. But like if you can just get to that finished point, you know, a little more often, you know what I mean? Just get there and you know, and strum the thing and say, all right, I need to start the next one. You know, like,
so true.
Yeah,
keep it moving. Yeah,
let's do it again.
Yeah, do it again. Do it all over again.
Yeah.
Lightning round. Do you want to do lightning round? I was gonna say that's probably a good place to wrap up.
Yeah.
That's a good.
And, you know, one thing I didn't think about,
but
not to change the slow.
Actually, I just thought of it. Yeah, go ahead. You first.
But you were talking about before, you know, about, you know, sound and how, you know, like putting everything together, and do you know what it's going to sound like, and, you know, are you ever surprised? one thing that I started doing a couple of years ago is taking measurements and everything that I. So when I'm building an instrument, I'll.
You got the secret book?
Yeah, I mean it's something like this where.
This is a big chart.
Yeah,
paper.
so just like draw the model out and then and draw out exactly where I put the
because
braces.
You have this digital Hacklinger gauge over here.
I do, yeah. So then when everything's finished, I know exactly how high the braces are. I know exactly how wide they are. I know exactly where they were placed. I know exactly how thick the top is on every given point. And that's been really good because it's like, okay, this guitar sounds like this, and
why?
Why? Yeah, and I like that, And so then I have a reference to whatever it is I like about that. Maybe I can just do it exactly the same, And hopefully it'll turn out the same way. Anyway,
documentation is definitely a good.
I think so. It's been really, really useful for me. Okay. So that's
I wanted to ask also just for everybody listening, who's interested, you're on the Facebooks, you're on the Instagrams, you got the website, and we'll have links to that in the podcast description, so you can just go to it. But are you going to be at any shows upcoming at any point in time? Public appearances, red carpet events?
Nothing, I do the Merrillhurst show every year.
It's at the end of April.
At the end of April.
At Merrillhurst University.
And that's it. I don't ever do any other shows.
Okay.
And I don't really have a reason why, I don't do the shows. I enjoy doing shows actually. And I've thought about doing more, but I really haven't made that happen. One thing I'd like to do is maybe some more festivals, like some bluegrass festivals or something like that, where they sell instruments there. I hear that's just a good spot, a good place to be, not quite as, I don't know how to say it, but
showy.
Yeah, not as showy and designy and as some of the shows. It's more laid back atmosphere and people.
Does that show that happens in the summer? Is it called Pickathon? I've not been to that. I think that's relatively new in the Portland area, but I think it's mostly bluegrass and singer-songwriter kind of stuff.
Yeah, they have all sorts of bands.
Yeah, I think it's grown enough to the point where
yeah,
the Decemberists are playing it and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Where it's not just exclusively.
It's gotten pretty big.
Like every festival that starts as a folk festival ends up, hosting full bands and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if they sell instruments. I don't know if people set up booths.
Maybe you could be the first.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We'll all be the first. Take it over.
Yeah. So, I think doing more performances with people that play well. I've got a guy that just bought a guitar of mine, and he recently offered to do some performances for me. I think he likes his guitar and he wants to play it and kind of show off my work, and so that'd be a good thing for me to do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
very cool.
I could take this one for you and do the same.
Yeah, please, please.
It's a nice feeling.
That's another thing. If people ever want to like borrow a guitar or whatever, I've always been really, they're instruments. I try not to covet them or baby them too much. It's like they just need to be out there being played, and I think that's what I feel most strongly about is, this is why I'm, my prices or whatever, I try to keep them affordable and I'm always willing to, work with people if they're low on funds or whatever, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's all about these instruments being loved and played,
Sometimes the folks that can afford high-end boutique instruments are not necessarily the people who are going to play them.
Yeah.
They're wall candy, and you want the serious musicians who are out in the
gently, but
taken care of.
Yeah,
just played.
It's a musical tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paintbrush makers. I always think of making guitars as like making paintbrushes. You know, you're making the tool with which somebody else is going to make the real art.
Right. It's true. Yeah. I like that.
Well, you do some fine work here.
Indeed.
Indeed art.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very cool work. And this has been a good.
Yeah,
cool.
We really have enjoyed your shop here and your little tour, and we appreciate you having us over here on a Sunday afternoon.
Thanks for getting in touch and coming by. Yeah, this is great having you. Yeah, really appreciate it. I like what you guys are doing. This is really good.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
We'll do the music and fade out.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Luthierist Podcast. Bye.